This is Kilo 2 Echo Zulu. Can anybody give me an audio check?
Sounding great there, Andrea. AC4YL.
Thank you, Kat. Good to know it works.
No problem at all. Good evening, ladies. We'll begin the net in just a minute. AC4YL.
What?
Welcome, ladies, to the YL OpNet. This is Catherine, AC4YL, Net Control for this evening's net. We meet every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Echolink ALARA Conference node. Be sure to invite all YLs you know to join us. We do ask that only YLs or licensed young lady ham radio operators check in and participate. The purpose of this net is to encourage you to become and stay active with amateur radio, help each other improve our operating knowledge and skills, and have fun. For more ham fun between weekly nets, check out the YL OpNet Facebook group. During the net, be sure to join us in the NFARL Do Drop In chat room by opening any web browser and going to nfarl.dodropin.org. Just put your name - call sign in the box and click Log In. YLs who would like to check in, give us your call sign, name, and current location. And don't forget that there is a 3 to 4 second delay when transmitting through Echolink. This is Catherine, AC4YL. We will now begin taking check-ins. Please call now.
and 08ZT Jenny in the UK.
AE7MB, Margaret, Battleground, Washington. Happy New Year, ladies.
KC8PKY, Linda, Knox, Indiana. It's cold.
KC9ZHV, Lauren in Albany, Illinois.
W1AYL, Ann in New Hampshire.
KC9YL, Ann in Wisconsin, cold and getting colder.
This is KN4IEH Sarah in Atlanta, Georgia.
K2EZ, Andrea, New Jersey.
KA7SKY, Sky in Gardner, Washington.
Whiskey Alpha 7 Alpha Lima, Alita, Utah.
Freezing and still snowing.
This is K4CSI, Palm Coast, Florida, and it's cold here too.
M08ZT Jenny in the UK, and I want snow.
KC1EO, Brenda, New Haven, Connecticut. KE0, CPIK in Colorado.
KB4RM, Rosemary, Texas.
Victor Alpha 3 Whiskey Hotel Uniform, Carroll, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Okay, very good. Let's start with those check-ins. We've got quite a group this evening. So far we have Jenny in 0HZT joining us from the UK and would like some snow. So some of you folks up in the Northeast can send some. Maybe Carol, you can send some her way. Margaret, AE7B, joining us from Washington. Linda, KC8PKY, joining us from Indiana. Lauren, KC9ZHV, joining us from Illinois. And W1AYL, joining us from New Hampshire. And KC9YL, joining us from Wisconsin. Sarah, I might need a call correction from you. I have Kilo November 4 Alpha India Hotel, KN4AIH. Sarah, could you come back and let me know if I have your call correct, please? Go ahead, AC4YL.
Sir, the call sign is Kilo November 4 India Echo Hotel, Sierra November 4, India Echo Hotel.
Okay, awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming back and correcting that for me. Trying to type and keep up with you gals as you check in can be challenging at times, so I appreciate your patience. And welcome to the net, Sarah. Great to have you with us. Andrea, K2EZ, joining us from New Jersey. Sky, K7SKY, joining us from Washington. Alita, WA7AL, checking in from Utah. Carol, K4SAF, joining from Kentucky this evening. And got you in the log, Carol. You doubled with Alita, but I saw you keying up, and so we got you in the log. Good evening. Nisi, KA1ULN, joining us from Massachusetts. Lisa, K4CSI, joining us from Florida. Welcome, Lisa. I believe this is your first time with us. We're glad to have you. Brenda, KC1EEO, joining us from Connecticut this evening. Susie, N8CGM, joining us from Ohio. Susie, I didn't get any audio, but I did see you key up, and we've got you in the log, so good evening to you. Glad you're with us. KE0CPI, joining us from Colorado. And I believe this may be your first time joining us as well, so welcome to the group. Rosemary, KB4RN, joining us from Texas this evening. Carol, VA3WHU, joining us from Ontario, Canada. Okay, I think we've had a few more YLs pop in since then, so if you'd like to check in, please call now. WB1ARU from snowy Massachusetts.
There, this is Chrissy, KC8UFC in Toledo, Ohio.
WA4YL, Dawn from Hudson, Florida.
Okay, fantastic. So we also have Ann, WB1ARU, joining us from Massachusetts this evening. Chrissy, KC8UFZ, joining us from Ohio. And Dawn, WA4YL, joining us from Florida. I believe Melanie, AG4YL, is also here with us. And so let's see. Do we have any other YLs who have not checked in and would like to do so? Please call now, and then we'll go into the net.
This is AG4YL. Yes, I am here. Good evening, ladies. Good evening, Catherine.
Node number 0070. Link clear.
Okay, very good. So we have Melanie here with us, confirmed here, so good evening to you. And a note that just left, Lawrence Repeater. Very good. Okay, well, you know, it wouldn't be the Wild OpNet on Echolink if we didn't have something interesting happen that's kind of mysterious. Anyway, so good evening, ladies. So glad to have you with us. We are glad to have some of you back that haven't been here in a while, and we are really glad to have some of the new gals come in and join us, and hopefully you'll enjoy the net. We do have a Facebook group called YL OpNet, and you can find us on Facebook, and if you're not a member of the group, you can request to join. There's just 3 questions that we'll just ask, what your if you're licensed and what your call sign is, and just how you found out about amateur radio. So that's it. It's very simple. All we do ask is that you are a licensed female ham radio operator, and you can join that group. We will approve your request. So encourage you to do that. Lots of chat going on over there. Also, we're trying to continue to record the nets. I need to go back and review some audio recordings before I upload to YouTube, but we do have a YouTube channel as well, also called YL OpNet on YouTube. You can do a search for that. You can subscribe if you want to receive an email to remind you if any new recordings are posted there. So there are several past recordings, including Echolink setup tutorials, which I think that you gals that may be newer to Echolink might find useful, or if you have some friends in your club, some YL friends that may be interested in getting licensed, or just have their technician and are looking to do something with their license, you can send them to the YouTube channel and they can listen to past nets and get to know each of us just by listening to previous nets. So I encourage you to do that. Lots of good information there. Okay, let me pause for a reset. Okay, I do want to take just a brief moment here on the front part of the net to say thank you to ALARA for letting us use this conference. I think we're going to continue to grow as a group, and so I want to take a moment to thank the ALARA folks for allowing us to use this conference that is set up to host 500 users. So we encourage you to spread the word if you have YL folks in your club that are looking to participate in some nets and have a lot of ham radio related questions. We'd love to have them join us here on the net and bring those questions to the group. Also would like to thank the OMs. I know we only ask YLs to participate in this net, but we do appreciate your support as well. I know several of you are out there listening, and I want to just say thank you to you for your support and spreading the word about the YL net to your club, local club, and organizations. We certainly welcome YLs from all over the world to come in and join us on this net each week. Okay, without further ado, I know everybody's on the edge of their seats and ready to hear Andrea's presentation this evening on VHF and UHF operating. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Andrea for her presentation, and then some time for questions. And then, Andrea, if you will kindly pass it back to me when you are finished, that would be awesome. So over to you, K2EZ AC4YL with the group.
Okay, Kat. Well, thank you very much for the welcome here tonight. And I've put together some notes here on what to talk about. And all through the day, I was getting suggestions on what should be added. And so I kind of geared this around a 20 to 30 minute talk and go into Q&A. After that, I'm going to obviously have to break through for resets at a number of times, and so if you put something in the chat, I'll try and take a look during those reset periods to answer questions. As many of you may know, I operate a lot of VHF, UHF contests as a rover, and I've been doing this for a number of years now. Largely, the contests are focused on what's called VHF, UHF, weak signal operation. The term weak signal, and that's what I'm going to talk about here tonight, the term weak signal doesn't necessarily mean the signals involved are weak. It just means that they can be operated to very low levels, like you may on HF. You have a lot of stations that are strong, and you have some stations that are very weak and reset. But in the VHF, UHF world, weak signal also refers to things outside of repeater and FM operation. A lot of people, I would say the majority of 2-meter users, 70 centimeters, do so through a handheld or an FM mobile rig, or maybe one of the digital voice modes. I'm not going to get into that, but like DMR, System Fusion, D-Star, just to name a few. Weak signal typically revolves around single sideband operation, CW operation. the digital modes like JT65, FT8, meteor scatter, moon bounce, satellite operation can also fall into that category to a lesser extent. Certainly in the contest that doesn't play a role. But some satellites are FM oriented, and those really wouldn't fall into the weak signal category. Now, one question that may be out there, why doesn't FM really get used in weak signal? Why isn't it, what is this world, why is it apart from FM? Okay, I'm back now. So, why is it apart from FM? Is it elitism? Why does this? Well, the operation is just so different, and the equipment is a little bit different. FM, well, just a little back in history, used to be a lot of AM, used to be a lot of the weak signal before sideband, but there was also CW. But FM has really evolved around operating your handheld, operating your mobile radio. FM equipment is relatively inexpensive to manufacture. It gives good audio quality. Repeaters, well, everybody knows, like the squelch adjustment on the FM. If you open the squelch, you'll hear a loud noise, white noise. And because of that, and the development of like PL tones, etc., repeaters work very well, or it's very easy to set up repeaters. And with a repeater, you can have these lesser quality stations like a mobile or a handheld communicate over a region served by the repeater. Let me reset. And this is K2EZ for ID here. From a mobile and a handheld, you've got vertical antenna polarization, and you're not necessarily looking at getting big distance. You're just looking at some simple communications. There's been a big business ban, commercial use for a newspaper that has a runner going out, or a business dispatching oil trucks to fill up gas stations, have a need for communications. And that's what FM has developed around. The problem with FM under a weak signal condition, when the signals start getting weak, everybody knows that you start getting a little hiss on the signal, and then it'll fade into the noise. But this differs because FM uses a FM detector, and it actually looks for your carrier to be kind of wiggling, varying frequency. But it knows what your frequency is off this other one. Well, as your carrier drops out in the noise, it can't tell the difference between the carrier and noise anymore. And then the FM detector itself makes a lot of noise. That's why you get so much noise when you go open squelch. So weak signal, FM really doesn't work on weak signal. If you get a band opening, you may reach some distance with FM. But under the same conditions, single sideband, CW, the other digital modes that I mentioned, will reach much further and be easier to copy. Reset. And I'll just make mention the digital voice modes, which again developed around commercial needs in the first place, and some variation on in amateur needs often use the same FM detector for communicating the data in those digital modes. So they tend to fall apart under weak signal conditions similar to FM. There are, getting back to sideband and CW, there's additional advantages. Your bandwidth is much smaller, so you have more efficiency of the signal. Another big difference between weak signal modes and FM, I mentioned already that vehicles, it's really easy to put a vertically polarized whip on it. Your handheld has a little antenna going straight up. But for best communications over long distance, horizontal polarization is preferred. The purpose, or the reason, or some history here, I guess, goes back to the early television days. They did a lot of testing with polarizations and found that horizontal works much better. But it's not very efficient or very difficult to put horizontal polarization on a car. For weak signal operation, where people are trying to get very far on this weak signal modes, horizontal polarization works better. So right there's this boundary between horizontal polarized antennas for weak signal and the antennas you use for FM. Now let's talk a little bit about propagation mode. Maybe I'll skip around a little bit here. Talk about distance on weak signal. K2EZ for ID. People who've only experienced FM operation know with the repeater and stuff, you're talking 40, 50 miles is the kind of distance you can reach. When you go on the single sideband, though, routinely 100 miles direct station to station without a repeaters is not that difficult. A lot of people look at 2 meters and think it's, and when I say 2 meters, I really mean 2 meters, 70 centimeters, even 6 meters. But, you know, the VHF, UHF as line of sight mode. 100 miles is well beyond line of sight. But it gets better than that. There's propagation modes, and I'll get into those in a minute. 150 miles from my mobile, going to a station that has beams is not that difficult. I generally consider 200 miles is my typical limit, about 200, 250 miles between a good content station and myself just driving on regular roads. If I'm on a hilltop, the distances get much further. A contest grade station to another contest grade station can hit 300, 400 miles under typical propagation conditions on 2 meters, on 70 centimeters even. So there's this whole world of long distance, comparatively, 2 meter, 1¼ meter, 70 centimeters out there. 6 meters is considered VHF, but it kind of straddles VHF or HF and VHF. It can exhibit E-skip, rare conditions F-skip, and have HF-like propagation characteristics, but other times it operates like 2 meters. So it's one of those interesting bands. 1¼ meters acts a lot like 2 meters, but it's very quiet, like 70 centimeters. And so that kind of bridges between VHF and UHF. Now, 1¼ meters is a US band that's not in many other countries. some other countries, and I don't know all over, but I know in England, as an example, they have the 4-meter band available, which is not available in the United States. Weak signal also includes, like I mentioned, meteor scatter and moon bounce. Moon bounce you can reach around the world with 2 meters. You can do it on 70 meters, and the people who do it tell me the higher you go on frequency, it's easier because the antennas get smaller. So these bands that you think are short, 50-mile distance, which, if you're not in the United States, 50 miles, let's call it 75 kilometers, can actually reach around the world. Propagation modes are a little bit different. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Like I said, 6-meter bridges HF and VHF, but typical ones, even on 2 meters, you can have a little bit of E-skip. That sometimes occurs there on extraordinary conditions. Tropospheric propagation, which is related to the atmosphere, thermal layers, and stuff. You'll hear the terms troposcatter, tropospheric ducting. These bend your signals and make them beyond line of sight. You also have diffraction that occurs over hills. A temperature inversion can create a layer that reflects signals. Now, unlike bouncing off the ionosphere, these are layers within the atmosphere, so it's lower and not quite as long-reaching. K2EZ for ID. Meteor scatter, which I mentioned, is a propagation mode that occurs when microscopic meteors or larger ones enter the atmosphere and create an ionization trail. And those ionization trails can reflect 6-meter and 2-meter signals just like E-skip may, although, again, it's in the atmosphere instead of outside the atmosphere. So you don't get the far distance on one skin, but statistically there's a chance you can get one hop and another hop, just like you can get multiple hops, although that takes 2 meteors occurring at the same time. Just to give you a frame of reference, a microscopic meteor on a given path, and let me say the distances are from 700 to 1,400 miles, which are, 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers, rough numbers. Those meteors occur, kind of peaks in the evening and it peaks in the morning. There's a couple different peaks that those tend to occur. But those things statistically happen within several minutes. And to really make use of that, some digital modes, and I'm not going to go into that, but there's specific digital modes tailored to that, just like there is for moon bounce. Getting down to the practical element, how can I get involved? And let me back up a moment here and say that, I'm going to reset. I lost my train of thought here. Okay, I threw myself off. With FM, if that's been your only experience, you may wonder, well, where is all this? Why don't I hear it on the band? Well, your FM detector really can't pick up CW. It can't pick up sideband unless it's really strong. So even if you tune to those parts of the band, also consider it's not always active too. You may not hear anything. I did once have somebody call me on FM while I was operating sideband. They had seen a spot and knew I was on the frequency, and it was so garbled I could not tell, but I ended up hearing them making out FM. I switched over to FM where it's the station. Getting back to what I was starting to say, how do you get involved in this other world that exists out there that you may not have even been aware of? Well, the simplest way for people that don't necessarily have the equipment, because you need multi-mode radios, is anybody on HF that has an HF plus 6-meter rig can get a taste of the VHF world through the 6-meter portion. When the E-skip is going on, yeah, it's like HF, but during a contest, you can get on 6 meters and experience tropospheric propagation and get involved in the contests there. Another area where a lot of people have the opportunity to get on VHF and UHF and don't necessarily think about it are these shack-in-the-box rigs. The ones like the IC7000, FT991, I don't have a whole list off the top of my head here, TS2000. These radios have 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. Getting on those bands, or with that kind of radio, you can get into this world just by getting the right antenna. Of course, there are some dedicated multi-mode VHF rigs out there, some used ones. For 2 meters, they're often not terribly expensive, but you know, sometimes you do have to get into it enough to really experiencing it. On the subject of antennas, you know, if you got, say, one of these shack-in-the-box rigs, what do you need for an antenna? Well, to start using that, of course, you want an antenna. So what do you need? On 2 meters, a 2-meter loop antenna, I think it's cost me $60. M Squared makes one. Loops and More is where I get mine. Antenna is just a small loop, about a foot in diameter. You can put that on a post and you can get active on the band. Small Yagis, a small 2-meter Yagi, or 70 centimeters. These things aren't very big. You can put them up on a mast with an old TV rotor. There's a YL outside Philadelphia who has a mast hooked to her deck with the antennas, and she goes out there and operates the contest and rotates these by hand and gets on a few bands. And she's really enthusiastic about the contests. There are, of course, technical challenges unique to VHF and UHF. Height is much more important than HF, but it's not everything. And if you do like I do, get a small antenna on a little mast you can hold, maybe a little tripod. You drive up to a hilltop during contests, and I've mentioned contests a few times. In the United States, we have 3 big contests. The January contest is coming up in a few weeks, 2.5 weeks, in, let's see, the weekend of the 20th. And that's one of the big 3 of the year in the United States. CQ has a worldwide VHF contest in July. And if you get out during one of these contests, you go up on a hilltop, I can guarantee the VHF operators are going to be thrilled. Even if you're not on a hilltop and you get on 6 meters, even if you get in a valley, listen around on 2 meters on sideband. And the frequencies in the United States are, the calling frequency is 144.200. Anywhere in that 144 range is where you'll find weak signal stations. CW on 2 meters, you got to keep in mind. 2 meters, I believe 6. The bottom 100 kilohertz is CW only, though. Now, just a moment to talk about technical challenges. There's obviously a lot you can encounter, and I just make you aware of these things. Feed line loss becomes a big factor. You don't want to use cheap feed line. You want to pay attention to the loss of the feed line at UHF frequencies, VHF frequencies, or keep the feed line short. If you're getting started on it, you don't have to worry about that. But that's also a concern with FM sometimes. So it's the same kind of thing. To really take advantage of things, if you've got a long feed line, mass mount preamps can be handy. Then you're getting into sequencers. You can run high power. Some of the stations out there run it, believe it or not, 1.5 kilowatts on 2 meters. It's amazing how many people are pushing high power, at least in the areas that I go and encounter. There's actually separate categories for high power and low power. Low power is, I believe, up to 200 watts on 2 meters, 100 watts on the higher band. K2EZ for ID. Now, if you're going to get and operate on VHF 6 meters, 2 meters, 1.25 meters, 70 centimeters, get the microwaves, Maidenhead grid squares are a big thing. There's not states and countries, people that do think of those, but everybody's going to want your grid square. The CQ Worldwide contest and the ALARA USA contest, the exchange is not signal report or anything else. It is simply your grid square. And at the moment, below microwave frequencies, it's a 4-digit grid square. Grid squares were getting talked about in the last net, I believe, or the one before, the last one that I made. And these are areas, well, there's a grid square map. I'm sure somebody could throw up a link for that. But knowing your grid square, where you are transmitting from, is important to know. And there's special awards that are around grid squares. In fact, the ALARA for 2018 has kicked off the International Grid Chase. Obviously, VHF, UHF contacts will count towards grids on there. And this will make general awareness of Maidenhead grids much higher than it's been in the past. You also have some special VHF awards. The VUCC award, that's the VHF UHF Century Club Award, is the equivalent of DXCC for 2 meters and 70 centimeters and 6 meters, you know, up in the microwave frequencies. And that award is simply working 100 different grid squares. Now, these grid squares are big enough from a fixed location. It can be tough. It's not an easy one to get. There are people on 2 meters who have worked all states. Moonbounce can help on that. But I know people who claim to have done that without working Moonbounce. Hawaii is very difficult to get. I know people who've worked Hawaii from the West Coast. Some in Texas claim. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting some told some tall tales. There's people that even chase DXCC on Moonbounce to get them on one Moonbounce mode specifically, but to also get on VHF and UHF, DXCC. There are expeditions that go around, I know somebody does some, specifically to operate in countries Moonbounce for DX chasers, Moonbounce DX chasers. I've already talked about the contests and the exchange, which is simply your grid square. My grid square at home is Fox November 21, FN 21. When I rove, every time I change grids, I can work stations again, and my grid square is changing, so I have to keep track of that. Another thing in the contest, and I've already mentioned these, is that once you work stations on one band, often they'll ask you, at least the regulars that are on there, what other bands you have. And if you have multiple bands, you can ask other people what other bands they have, because, the challenge, one of the challenges is if you're using a beam, getting somebody's beam pointed at the same time you're pointing their beam opposite direction, you're facing the same way with beams. So once you've got locked on that way, you work them on 2 meters, say what other band? Well, there's people with 10 bands from 6 meters, 2 meters, 1 1/4 meters, 70 centimeters, 900 megahertz, 1.2 gigahertz, 2304, 35, I start losing these, 10 gigahertz, 24 gigahertz. And they'll QSY to those other bands to work as many contacts. It's more contacts, but other bands also count as separate multipliers. Grid squares are multipliers in the contest. Also in the contest is, and those for you that have FM equipment, so on contest weekends it makes sense to listen. In the ALARA contest, there's an FM only category. I know a station, KK6KMU, he likes to go up in January to Hill in Virginia and try and work all the mobiles and any fixed station. In fact, he can work a fixed station and person, as long as they're using different radio equipment, different antennas for their home station, then in their car can then operate, work them from their mobile. There's even people that on FM only, this is an FM only operator, go up to a hilltop and work them. So while this talk is primarily about weak signal, just a little plug for the FM people out there who are going to operate in the contest. What I do in the contests, as I mentioned before, I rove. I'm a rover. I operate from my car. I operate 4 bands, 6 meters, 2 meters, 1 1/4 meters, and 70 centimeters. I absolutely love this. This makes up something I love driving. I enjoy driving. I enjoy going down the road and operating the radio. Rovers are stations that are also of very much interest to the community of VHF and UHF operators, because during the contest, as a rover, when I change grids, I can work the same stations again. So I am somebody that they can work again and again and again. They want to know where I'm going. And I'll tell you, the fixed stations, after, first hour of the contest are busy. After that, by the second day, they're getting hungry. There's nobody out there new to work because they've worked them all, unless some exotic conditions open up, temperature inversion occurs. And just one tip here, typically mornings when things start warming up, that's where you get those temperature inversions. So that's a good time looking that the VHFers tend to look for. So K2EZ for ID. So the contesters are out there looking for the rovers. And as a rover, to do that, it's really simple. If you've got one of these shack-in-the-box rigs in the car, or have one, they're usually pretty portable kind of things. You drive up to a high spot in a hill, a park, someplace, and you get out, small Yagi on a stick, and you go point around and see what you can find. Even if you go to a second, you don't have to be a rover. You could be portable. There's a portable category. If you're going to more than one grid square, you would identify yourself as a rover. I'm not going to get into the details on the rules there. There are fixed station operations. Some of them are multi-ops. I know the local club here has multi-op station, invites any member who wants to operate to come up. There will be times to operate and to learn how to operate. One of the big stations out there, I think the guy sunk $250,000 into the station, is K5 Quebec Echo, Kilo 5 Quebec Echo in eastern Texas. And, there's not a lot of VHF stations he can work. So what he does is he has some moon bounce, and he gets multipliers with moon bounce and works different things. And while I'm on the subject of moon bounce used to be big antenna arrays, high power, but digital modes, which Ria N2RJ will be talking about next week. Wow, my English is disappearing on me. Has equalized it so one long Yagi and reasonable power, you can get moon bounce, work some moon bounce. If you go higher in frequencies, less equipment available. But again, you can do that with these modes. In Europe, I hear 1.2 gigahertz is very possible, very desirable. I see in the pictures posted there, one is one vehicle outside and it's a different vehicle on the inside, the second picture. Last thing I want to talk about, and is, I think I've run a lot longer than I planned, is the type of people on VHF. I want to say it has been a very welcoming group of people to me. I can't tell you how many have helped me out and how friendly they are. Now, maybe this is because they're so much looking for somebody else they can make contacts with their big stations that can, unlike an HF station that can reach around the world, that they're going to be nice to everybody and welcome everyone in. But it is a little bit of a tight-knit community there. For real big stations, it can be technically exacting. When you're stacking antennas, putting up big towers and all the crazy things that some of the people do. But at the other hand, you can get into it fairly easily. And, you know, those big stations out there, they'll make it easy for you to work them. So I really enjoyed the VHF operation. I kind of fell into it accidentally. My first rove was January of 2015. So this will be my 15, 16, 17. So this will be my 4th January VHF contest if I can go out there. So that's all I had for right now. I'm going to pass it back to Kat, and then I can take any questions, and I'll let Kat kind of moderate that. AC4YL in the group, K2EZ.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Andrea, for being willing to talk to us a bit about VHF and UHF operating. A lot of great information. In fact, I'm going to go back and listen to this net again and try to really understand it all and really learn it even more. Kind of hard to do while you're kind of watching the chats and such, and watching for YLs that have popped in, and we have had a few join us since the beginning of the net, so hopefully everyone enjoyed the presentation. It's very well done. Thank you so much, Andrea, and I'm sure some of you have some questions, so I'll send it back to the group here. If you have a question for Andrea, please go ahead and address it directly with her, and then pass it back to Net Control. So anyone have a question for Andrea? Okay, AC4YL here. I think everybody is still trying to digest the info. But saw some great chat going on in the Echolink chat. Everybody's sharing their grid square. That's great. It's fantastic. So good practice in finding what your grid square is and what you would exchange. So Andrea, first of all, thanks Nisi for posting the pictures of Andrea's setup. Some of her pictures. You can check out Andrea's QRZ page. Just go to qrz.com. and in the search box type in K2EZ and do a search, and you can find Andrea's bio with several pictures in there of her VHF, UHF contesting rover setups, and so very cool pictures. So let's see, a question I had, Andrea, just from more of a practical sense, and I know you covered some of this in your presentation, but to kind of bring it home for me and my late night small brain this evening. So let's say I wanted to operate in the contest coming up in a little over 2 weeks. I do not have a shack-in-the-box radio. Is there any possibility of me participating in the VHF UHF contest, say with a 2-meter 440 handheld? I know it's a FM only, but is there a possibility of that? And perhaps a fairly simple antenna setup. Is there any way that could be done? Or should I just plan for later on in the year? I believe the next one is in June, I believe. So back to you, Andrea, and then I think Melanie has a question in the chat as well. So K2EZ, AC4YL with the group.
UA4YL coming through Lauren's node. I was wondering what caused my Echolink to not hook up to ALARA tonight. WA4YL, back to Net Control.
This is AC4YL here. I think we're good, Melanie. Looks like K4EX has been disconnected, so I think we can keep the NF4GA repeater for now. Okay, so apologies, ladies, for that. We just had two repeaters exchanging courtesy tones in a loop. So please, for those that connect repeaters into this net, if you will please, if you can disable the courtesy tone for the time period of the net, it would be most helpful, because what happens is we have repeaters that bounce their courtesy tone back and forth, keying up and unkeying, and no one can get in. So it causes delays during the net. We love having you guys link in your repeater, but please, if you can disable the courtesy tone feature during the net, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dawn, we'll come back to your question in a bit. I'd like to stay focused on our questions for Andrea here. So Andrea, I'm going to pass it back to you, and then perhaps we'll go to Melanie's question in the chat. So back to you, Andrea, K2EZ AC4YL with the group.
Thank you, Kat. Let's see, on your question, with just a handheld, well, first thing, if you've got an HF and with plus 6 meters, and I don't know if you do, but I know you got out with Melanie doing National Parks on Air. If the rig that you used had 6 meters, that would be one way. With the simple handheld, it's always worth listening. On 2 meters, 146.52 is now allowed to be used, and 446.000 is calling frequency on 70 centimeters. You can listen. If you get out in the car and drive up to a hilltop, you know, a rubber duck probably isn't going to work very well, but it's also very simple to build. A small 2-meter vertical dipole, and on FM, if you're going to use FM in a contest, you should do vertical polarization, because that's the convention that's used there. A footnote on polarization: if you have a vertical polarized antenna versus a horizontal antenna, that will cost about 20 dB of signal. Call it about 3S units, 4S units. So you don't want to do that. That can hurt you. But with that 2 meter, 70 centimeter radio, 146.52 would be the place to listen to. And if you have opportunity to go up on the hilltop, you know, listen for a while. You can call. If you want. It probably doesn't make sense to try and get involved in any way competitively. Every contest, when I'm driving through a metro area, when I'm not catching anything on sideband, I'll dial over to 146.52 and make a couple calls. And I routinely work people on their handhelds. Some of the people will run out to their car and get on another band that they don't have on their handheld. So that's how you can get involved. It's very limited. Let me reset, and I'll answer the other question. As to Melanie's question about a 6-digit grid square, to date, at least I think I saw one contest, maybe it was in England, where they were asking for a 6-digit grid square. In the U.S. right now, that is used on microwave contests. the microwave sprint that Rhea, N2RJ, and myself participated in the spring, right? Oh God, yeah, I can't even keep my years straight now. That was a 6-digit grid square exchange. We had to, instead of grids being multipliers, they wanted a 6-digit grid because it was used for calculating distance, and the actual distance was your score. In the ALARA UHF or 222 and up contest, they require 6-digit grid squares, and all scoring is based upon distance, which is times a multiplying factor. So those are the places where a 6-digit grid square is used for contest exchange purposes. Now, there's in routine VHF, UHF contests, the 6-digit grid square is often requested. It's not necessary, but it's often requested to help with antenna pointing. So I'll be on a hilltop, or I'll be someplace, and I'll just get a signal, and so somebody will ask for my 6-digit grid square, help get their beam pointed at me better. They'll give me their 6-digit grid square, and well, I'll tell them I'm pointed right at you because I'm using I won't say this. I'm using Omnis right now, so it doesn't matter where my antennas are pointed. I'll go, I'm pointed right on you. I'm good. They'll try to tell me what direction I should point to them and stuff. So that's where that comes in. The rules for the VHF, UHF contests, the ALRLs, you are allowed to text message people, you're allowed to call up people. So frequently, there's chat rooms set up specifically for SCEDs. You can use all that. You can use spotting assistant, self-spotting. And frequently on those, you'll use your 6-digit so people can point to you. So that's the answer to that question. K2EZ.
Okay, very good, Andrea. Thank you so much for that. Let's open it back up and see if anybody else has questions for Andrea.
This is WA4YL with a question for Andrea.
Okay, Dawn, please, go ahead. Go ahead, Dawn, with your question. WA4YL, AC4YL with the group.
Yeah, this is for Andrea. One time about 6 years ago, I had experience with something on Simplex. I was hurt in Alabama. They could hear me, and I couldn't hear them. Did you ever have that happen to you? Over to you, Andrea.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Dawn. There's, of course, times you can hear a station and a station can't hear you. Propagation isn't always two-way. Now, on 2 meters, I know where you are in Florida. You're not too far off the ocean. And over oceans, there do tend to be certain tropospheric propagation modes, which will give you long distances. Getting to Alabama, even getting from Florida stations, getting to Texas is not particularly surprising. It's not all the time there are conditions. Right now, so the answer to the question, yeah, that does happen, and sometimes the other station can't hear you. Sometimes the conditions change so suddenly, and then it works one way, and then conditions are gone. I've personally made a contact while driving on the highway, 725 miles from around Nashville, I think just south or just north of Nashville, down to San Antonio, Texas. I had another, and that was decent signal strengths on 2 meters. I had another contact from a hilltop that was 775 miles on single sideband. Both these, from central Pennsylvania out to Missouri. So you do get these kind of openings that occur. So I've answered your question a little bit more there, Dawn.
Thank you, Andrea. And the other thing about this contact that I made, that they heard me but I couldn't hear them, my antenna was a mag mount on a cookie sheet on the ground outside my bedroom window. So my antenna wasn't up in the air when all this happened. So I'm still wondering how that was possible, a small antenna on the ground. That's here.
I will say that's impressive. Sometimes when things open, the signal strengths are really strong, and it's just surprising. And just meteor scatter is usually fractions of a second, and that's why the digital mode. But sometimes there's a big meteor comes in, and it may be open for 15, 20 seconds. And it's like HF when that happens. I mean, super strong signals for the period of time. So, you know, something 6 years ago, obviously you haven't encountered it a lot. Those things do happen. K2EZ. Okay, let me, I'll answer, I see Melanie's next question there.
Tonight. And Mike Rich, there is Echo Lima 88, Papa India. For anyone out there listening. WA4YL, back to net control.
Okay, I doubled with you a little bit there, Dawn. But I got it. Echo Lima 88. 88 sounds like a good grid square. Just like Melanie said. All right, to answer Melanie's question. Oops, it scrolled off, and now I need my mouse to get it. Here we go. Let's see. Is there such thing as ground wave at those frequencies? I don't know that it's typically referred to is truly ground wave. Ground wave, as it's defined, is vertical polarization, and it's one that travels along the ground, and loss goes up dramatically as you go up in frequency. It's a mode that primarily applies to 80 meters, 40 meters even, and 160 meters. But you can still have what I kind of referred as terrestrial propagation, which is really tropospheric scatter. That is there. It's not abnormal to see this, that lets you get those contacts that are 100 miles, 200 miles under almost conditions that exist almost all the time. And you can get those kind of distances. Sometimes there's little noise. Sometimes things will seem to suck up your signal. 6 meters, it can show some enhancement. You'll hear that term, and that's usually some tropospheric enhancement going on there. So let's see. Any other questions? K2EZ. Okay. Melanie has asked, is circular polarization only for satellite work? Well, that is a good question. Primarily, I'm just thinking in the weak signal, I can't think of any cases where people actively go for circular polarization. There is advantage to it in moon bounce, as an example, but the trade-off is when you have circular polarization, half your energy, if you're communicating with somebody linear polarized, half your energy is effectively, and you lose half energy, or 3 dB. On the other hand, and this is why it can be nice on moon bounce, is most stations are running linearly polarized, and so if they're a different polarization than you, they're still going to hear you. And from like one of the DXers for EME, he says he runs one polarization, and then I'll flip polarization. There'll be a whole new set of stations that they haven't worked yet, just by changing the polarization. Satellites, that obviously is there because the satellite can rotate, as different orientation, and so you can't use a fixed polarization there, because then it would be always changing. So you need circular polarization. Any other questions? K2EZ?
Well, I'm not hearing any more questions, so wow, what a great presentation. Thank you so much for all the great info, Andrea, and thank you, ladies, for your questions that you did have, and the exchange of grid squares there in the chat. It's a lot of fun. Thanks again, Andrea. We really appreciate it. And ladies, if you should have any further questions on VHF, UHF, I'm sure Andrea wouldn't mind if you pulled up her QRZ page, and I think her email is there, or you can also ask them in the WILE OpNet Facebook group, and we can answer them as well there. So thanks again, Andrea. Really appreciate you taking the time to put that together for us. Really enjoyed that. Learned a lot of good stuff, and very, very cool. So thanks again, and we look forward to hearing about how your experience with the roving goes this year, if you're able to take the time out of your schedule to do it. I know there was some question as to whether you'd be able to or not. So hopefully you can, and we'd love to hear how that goes for you afterwards. So thanks so much, Andrea. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate the opportunity. Great to see all the ladies on the net here tonight. And yeah, my email is k2ez@awrl.net. really easy. easy to remember, I say. I trip all over that when I wasn't even thinking. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And this contest is, I'm going to be in Texas. It's going to be interesting. Between a finicky vehicle and funny schedules, we'll see what's going to happen. 33 ladies, have a great night. K2E said, back to net.
Okay, very good. So, want to welcome some of the gals that have joined us since Andrea's presentation started a bit ago. We had Rhea join us in 2RJ, Laura KG5UGI in Texas join us, Judy N5KUO join us from Oklahoma, Rachel G6AMY joining us from the UK. We're so glad you were able to get your Echolink set up, Rachel, and welcome to the group. And CJ, K7CJS, has also joined us. Marcia is over in the Do Drop In chat in 8FE. She's not currently on Echolink, but if you'd like to say hi to her, she had an Aries group net this evening and signed in over there and has just now made it into the chat to say hello to us. So if you'd like to say hello to Marcia, you can find her over there in the chat. And so, very good group this evening. We're so glad to have everybody. And so we have just about 12 minutes left. So what I'd like to do is take just a moment and see if anybody was able to participate in the RAC Winter Contest for contacting Canadian stations over this past weekend. I know I was able to spend some time. Of course, my goal was a little different. I was more trying to go after the RAC stations for their special event for the year, and was able to get most of them, at least enough to earn their nice certificate. So I'll definitely be sending in my log for that. It's very cool. But I wondered if anybody else was able to participate, and if you would like to tell us a little bit about your experience in doing so. Please go ahead and call now, AC4YL. Okay, well, I know there was quite a bit of chat going on in the While OpNet Facebook group, comments, posts, I should say, going on about that, and that is great. So several gals had a lot of fun playing RAC Winter Contest, so hopefully you were able to, and if not, it's an annual event, so encourage you to participate in next year. It's a lot of fun. Had a good time. It was fun trying to work as many provinces as possible, and I was able to put some new ones in my log this year, so very cool. All right, I think Melanie had a comment perhaps on this topic, so over to you, AG4YL.
Good evening, ladies. This is AG4YL Melanie. Nice to talk to you all. And BC Canada Winter Contest. There is also a Canada contest, also put on by the RAC, which is the Radio Amateurs of Canada, or Radio Amateur du Canada, depending on whether or not you're French, Canadian, or English Canadian. But anyway, the RAC Canada contest is the same rules and idea behind the Canada Winter Contest, and we used, Catherine and I both used N3FJP's Canada Day, or it was a Winter Canada and Canada contest, RAC. He makes one for that. So we use that logging program. And the Canada Day contest rules, Canada Day is on July 1st, which is Canada's version of our 4th of July here in the United States. And the RAC does a Canada Day contest, and it's a lot of fun. I played a little bit in it last year, or it is last year, right? 2017. And I did have a good time, and contacted a few stations in Canada and did play the Canada Day contest, which they just call the RAC Canada contest. But a lot of fun, very friendly, great contest. It's a contest that is, it kind of, in a way, reminds me of Field Day, in that it doesn't have that hard gun contest feel to it. It's very friendly. The people you contact are very friendly. The exchanges are not overly rushed. It's just a nice feel to a contest. Let me pause for reset. Some contests, which I have fun in as well. Contests, it's Friday night thanks, Friday night thanks, Friday night thanks, Friday night thanks, and that's how they work their pilot. Usually the Canadian stations are a little bit more relaxed about the exchanges, and they will say, they'll give you a signal report, and they'll say thank you, and they'll wait for you to say thank you in 73. Then they'll say 73 in QRZ. So it's friendlier. If you haven't done a lot of contesting, I'd highly recommend this. Or if you're interested in contesting and haven't done it yet, and because it's North America, you can almost always, find somebody to contact, and it's a good challenge to try to get some of those provinces like Nunavut and the Yukon and the Northwest Territories, which were the only 3 provinces that evaded me for the RAC Canada 150 event and the Canada Winter Contest. But I got all the other stations, the special RAC stations, which were extra multipliers. It was really a great time. Anyway, that's what I had to say on that. Anybody have any questions about the contest or contesting? Post it on Facebook. There's plenty of us out there to be glad to answer it. And that reminds me, if Andre, you have any links you would like to put in any of the contest links, any of the links to references or resources that you like or find helpful or useful, or that you would like to share with the group, please post them to the While UpNet Facebook group. I can pin the post, and we can allow comment back and forth on that, so that might be helpful too. So with that, I'm going to send it back over to Catherine and Annette. This is AG4YL.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much, Melanie, for coming in and sharing your RAC Winter Contest experience and the additional information about that. We appreciate that. We just have about 4 minutes, ladies. If you can believe this, net just kind of flew by with some great information and still trying to absorb it all. So we have a great group here with us this evening, and what I'd like to do is ask if Melanie next week can plan on telling us a little bit more on the update on Parks on the Air, KFF, WWFF, and perhaps give us the details next week when we have a little bit more time. Maybe we'll get to you after Rhea finishes. So we'd like to take a moment to please invite everyone to our net next week. Again, it's every Thursday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, which is currently 0100 UTC Friday morning. We would love to have you back with us next week. Rhea N2RJ has graciously accepted doing a presentation for us on digital modes, operating digital modes. So get your specific questions ready for her next week. We're really looking forward to that as well. And again, should you have further questions about VHF, UHF operating, please reach out to Andrea via her email, k2ez@arrl.net, or post your questions on the YLOpNet Facebook group. We'd love to see that as well. Okay, very good. So I think what we'll do now is see if we have any YLs who have joined us that have not gotten a chance to check in. If you would like to check in officially, just give us your call sign, your name, and just your current location. We'd love to hear you check in and get you in the log for the net this evening. So if you would like to check in, please call now, AC4YL.
KN4HYL, this is Patricia in Woodstock, Georgia.
M2RJ, Rhea in Wantage, New Jersey. Just want to get my check-in formally.
Okay, very good. So also joining us is Patricia. Patricia, if you could come back with your call sign again, because I don't think I typed it correctly here. I got the KN4, but if you could give me your call sign one more time, Patricia, that would be great.
That was KN4HYL, Kilo November 4, Hotel Yankee Lima.
Okay, fantastic. KN4HYL. Appreciate it. I had it all correct except the last letter. Go figure. What a great call sign. If you were assigned that as just the next one in the link, well, aren't you just lucky, Patricia, to have YL at the end of your call sign by default? So great to have you with us. Thanks so much for checking in. We appreciate you being here, and hopefully you found this information somewhat helpful and informative, and we invite you to come back every week. And I understand you are in Woodstock, Georgia, and Melanie and I will be doing a presentation geared toward YLs and amateur radio at the NF4GA North Fulton Amateur Radio League meeting, club meeting, on the 16th of January. So if you can make it there, that would be great. We'd love to meet you in person, Patricia. Thanks so much for joining us. And Rhea N2RJ, thanks so much for officially checking in. We do have you in the log as well. Thanks so much, ladies. We sincerely appreciate you being here. Please, again, don't forget to post ham radio things in our YLOpNet Facebook group, pictures of you operating, any questions, ham radio related questions that you have. We'd love to see some information flowing through that. We'd also like to take a moment and thank Lauren, KC9ZHV, for live streaming and recording of this net and making it available to all through YouTube. We would also like to thank ALARA for the use of this Echolink conference node, North Fulton Amateur Radio League for their drop-in chat room, and all who are linked and listening for your ongoing support of this net. This is Catherine, AC4YL, and I will go ahead and close out the YLOpNet and return the ALARA conference node normal use. 33 ladies, and look forward to seeing you next week.
And Mervyn would like to thank everybody for your support in his health. He had the injection into his knee, which lasted 10 days. He's back to square one again, but he has got an appointment to have a more in-depth scan on his knee on Tuesday. Thank you, Kat. Back to you.
Well, very good, Jenny. Well, we're glad that he's doing better, and thanks so much. We appreciate him being there on the side and supporting you and all of us, YLs and Amateur Radio. We appreciate all the support that we get from such a great group of hands. So, thanks so much. Take care, Jenny, and to your other half. 7333 AC4YL.
AC4YL, WA4YL.
Hey, Dawn, what's going on?
Not much. I just wanted to know. I was breaking in on the ALARA node, but then it hit me out, and then I tried to connect that through there, and it wouldn't let me in. So I don't know if it's on my end or what's going on there. But I was able to get through on Lauren's node. So maybe I don't know what I'm doing wrong with the echo link.
What message were you getting, Dawn, when you tried to connect and weren't able to?
It just said unable to connect. Unable to connect is all it said. Try again, and it wouldn't let me in at all.
Well, not entirely sure, Dawn. It could be a problem on your end. It could be a problem on that end. Maybe it's not used to having so many YLs connect at one time. We're giving it a good workout. So Melanie's asking the question if you are using a proxy. So are you on a computer, or are you on a tablet, or are you on a phone trying to connect, Dawn? Okay, and we lost Dawn, I think, because the repeater disconnected from here. So, alright, well, maybe Dawn will be able to come back in here, I'm not sure. Anyway, Rachel, it was great to see you this evening. I'm glad you were able to get your Echo Link set up. That's fantastic, and you're already in, so hopefully you'll be able to join us again next week, or anytime you can join us every Thursday. We'd love to see you and have you with us. We appreciate you being here. G6AMY AC4YL.